Have you ever wondered about addiction? Have you ever thought about addiction? Have you ever thought about what it is that makes people addicted? Well, that's what we're going to talk about today in this video. Addiction. Hi, I'm Brett, your favorite shrink, and welcome back to Yoga Psych. This is where we're going to provide you some ancient answers to your current problems. And today we're going to look inside of you, particularly inside of your brain, to help you understand this topic of addiction. We always think about addiction, and again, it comes from our modern psychology view. We look at addiction as negative. We look at it as a character flaw, as a weakness. We look at it as pathetic, sad. And we even have tons of shame around that. We think, oh, that guy's an addict, or I'm an addict, what's wrong with me? And we always think bad. But here's the weird answer. And that's the answer we give a lot in Yoga Psych, which is, your addiction actually comes from something positive. And that's hard to understand, but let me explain why. and when you do, you'll have better empathy for yourself, and you'll have better empathy for those around you who are struggling with addictions. So let's look at what an addiction is. Let's talk about alcohol, because alcohol is pretty much the best, it's the most general addiction out there. And so we'll just kind of use it because it also has lots and lots of data around it. And it has that hard data that we can use as kind of our backdrop or evidence. Now, I want you to think about a continuum. I want you to think about a line from one end to the other. And the continuum has on one side of it negative feelings, like unhappiness, pain. We'll call it -10. And then on the other end of our continuum, we have positive feelings. We have good feelings. We'll call that +10. And most of us, are somewhere in the middle, somewhere around a 0. Most of the time we're not feeling super happy, and hopefully most of the time we're not feeling super sad. But there's this line, okay? Now, what happens in an addiction is really weird. Because what will happen is that somebody will come along and they'll use a substance. And again, we're going to use alcohol as our example. They'll use some kind of substance. And what will happen is it'll take them on that continuum from that kind of 0 or neutral to a high number. An 8, a 9. So if I drink a beer and I've never had beer before, all of a sudden I get this rush of dopamine. My pleasure centers in my brain light up. Now, that may sound like, duh, isn't that what happens with everybody? And the answer is actually no, that is not what happens with everybody. Some people will drink a beer, they'll go out with some friends and be social drinkers, or they'll drink a beer and they'll go, yay, that was kind of fun, that was kind of cool. But, hanging out with the friends, that was just as cool. And so the beer itself is a 2. It's not a 3 or a 10. It's a 2. It's not that big a deal. And so next day, if I don't drink another one, that's fine with me. I don't care. It wasn't the end of the world for me. But if you have an addict brain, let's go back to our addict. If you have an addict brain and you drink alcohol, what will happen is huge amounts of dopamine will be released in your brain. And you'll get this rush. And all of a sudden, 8. All of a sudden, you're like, oh my gosh, that was amazing. Then what do you want to do? Because that was so amazing. You want to drink more. You want to take another drink and another drink and another drink and another drink because that was amazing. And you just want to keep feeling that amazing feeling. And then the next day, what do you want to do? I want to drink more. And the friend that I was out drinking with, I don't even care about him anymore. Who cares? I just want to go drink. Social drinkers drink socially. They drink with other people because it's the ambiance. It's the connection that they have that produces the dopamine, not the alcohol. But alcoholics, oh, they can drink alone because it's not about other people. It's not about hanging out or being in a group or having fun with friends. It's about drinking because I want to get that 8. And so now alcoholics will go out and they'll drink alone. They'll drink by themselves in a closet, in their apartment, whatever. It doesn't matter where they drink. They could drink out of a paper bag on the street because it's the alcohol that's producing this 8 effect. And they want to reproduce it any way they can. The problem is that as we move from that 0 to an 8, the next day, what happens is that 8 flips not to 0, but to negative numbers. 4, 5, 6, maybe even 8, negative 8. And now I feel bad. I have a hangover. I feel sick. I don't feel so good anymore. So what do I want to do? Well, I know how to feel better. I'm going to have a drink. And then I have a drink and I start to feel better. Now, as I do that over time, what happens is I don't go up to 8s anymore. I go up to 5s, 4s, 3s. I don't go up those high numbers. As I use any substance, the effect stops happening in terms of the dopamine, but the swing down keeps happening. And I keep swinging down deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. And now what happens when you're truly an addict is that you can't get off of heroin, meth, alcohol, whatever it is, because you feel so bad when you're off of it. Not because you feel good anymore. You're feeling like a 0 now, or maybe a negative 1. When you're on the substance now, it's not a good feeling. It just makes you feel normal. But when you're off of it, when you're coming down from it, you feel like crap. And because you feel so bad, you want to do anything to start to feel normal again. Well, that's the way an addiction works. And what's interesting is that addictions like that can happen both chemically with alcohol, but also behaviorally. Pornography is a perfect example of that. Let's just look at the difference between men and women. Men can look at pornography and not all men are the same. Not all men have the same sex drive, but some men will look at pornography and it'll be like, whoa, that was awesome. That got my brain stimulated. And there's a high sense of rush or excitement where a woman would look at pornography and she's like, or maybe 1 point, or maybe even negative. It doesn't produce any dopamine in her brain. So she's looking at pornography going, I don't get it. This is kind of gross. This is kind of stupid. And so she looks at her man and she thinks, what is wrong with you? Well, what's wrong with him is he's feeling dopamine. He's feeling excited. He's feeling rushed. His pleasure centers are overstimulated. And that's what one of the dangers is in early childhood exposure to sex and sexuality, is that it overstimulates the brain as the brain is developing. And so what it does is it creates a much higher libido and much more drive. I want that, I need that. Than it would if the brain wasn't exposed, if they're exposed at 10, 9, 8, some early age to sexuality, their brain's going to start craving it early. If they're 18, 19, 20s, the libido's not as high because it's not stimulating the brain in quite the same way. It's a 2, it's a 3. It's nice. I like connecting with my spouse, but it's the connecting I like with my spouse. And the sex is okay, the sex is good, but it's the connecting. It's the relationship. Well, that's somebody that has a little lower libido. The dopamine isn't being stimulated at such high levels as it is where we see people that are getting addicted to pornography. Well, again, I hope that helps you understand the addictive brain, because it's not broken. It's actually overproducing pleasure hormones. And in dealing with the addiction, we got to deal with it, not from a pathological point of view, but helping them deal with it from a pleasure point of view, how to understand this point of view without the shame and blame, so they're not negative numbers, but they can keep somebody in more positive numbers. Again, I hope that was useful. I'm hoping I'm going to make more on this one because it's a big topic. It's an important topic. I'm Brett, your favorite shrink, and you're watching Yoga Psych. Ancient answers for your current problems. Talk to you soon.